DID Hatchery says we must support Biden now. The media frenzy is ludicrous. He can't be replaced. It's too late to build a coalition. Remember in 1968, Dems ousted their incumbent, causing Nixon to win. It is true, Hubert Humphrey in 68, I guess, did fall short. And that was a winnable election. There might have been other things at play there, DID Hatchery, but I take your point about closing ranks behind Biden. And you certainly do not see that in the most of the week, last week, and certainly over the weekend, as Democrats are privately and then publicly slowly coming out. Kamala has not passed any voter vetting, says Just Give Me the Truth. And no time for a primary season. I changed my mind on this. I think we have to double down on support for Biden. It's what the GOP has done with Trump. That's certainly true. That, you know, if this were the Republican candidate, they wouldn't even look back. Be like, whatever, dude. I just heard an interesting take on Joe Biden's aging. It has not made him worse. It has made him slower, more deliberate. Coming up with a fast quip or lie is Trump's talent, not presidential. Just Give Me the Truth says that. Yeah, this is the point I was making before, which is, again, this has nothing to do with governing. This has nothing to do with abilities when it comes to looking at all the different variables that affect life in this country and around the planet. It has to do with, I'd call it almost a campaign skill, which is your ability to speak, your ability to sell that which you have done and that which you feel you want to do or will do in the next administration. So it's a sales job, but and to try to outsell Donald Trump, you'll never do it because he's making crap up. You know, new improved. I got a new improved health care plan. I've got a better plan for the insurrectionists. They're going to build walls. I don't know what. I mean, it's utterly crazy. But it is true that the focus on Joe Biden has taken the oxygen out of the conversation around Trump, and it's put the oxygen, the media oxygen, around Biden. And certainly it's also true, I would say, that the media is in their own doom loop on this. It's just one op-ed after another that I'm reading about how I was a Joe Biden fan, then I saw this, and you know what? This just can't continue. Our worst fears, etc. The truth about Joe Biden is that he's never been a good quipster. He's never been a good salesperson. He's never been a particularly good orator. Donald Trump can slice into pieces if what Trump says is not fact-checked at all. And frankly, Joe Biden is the guy there to fact-check him, at least on a couple of things. So on a couple of those big lies, that's what you need Joe Biden to do. And he's clearly just not that guy now, it wouldn't seem. So the Dems do a bad job at getting behind the, quote, guy. They are quick to dump. That's from Karen. And this is the point I made initially. When all of this hit, I said, you know, this is what the Democrats do. They kill their own. Al Franken is a classic example of it. And so they oversteer. And the reason that you could consider this oversteering is because there's not a whole lot you can do unless he actually pulls out on his own. The primaries are done. The cake is baked. This is a system by which if you go to a convention, those delegates are pledged to Joe Biden. They will vote for Joe Biden, and he will be the nominee. So what you're talking about is some extra electoral process whereby that we back room with Biden. He thinks, oh, my God, we're going to get slaughtered. My approval rating is so low. We're down in the 30s. No president has overcome that kind of low approval rating to win re-election. He'll have to have that come to Jesus moment. If he doesn't have it, there will not be a change. There is nothing that can be done and exerted from the outside to change the way things are.
I was just reading this article on CNN, and the headline is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries could decide Biden's fate, as if, you know, if they all get together, the House leaders, and they all send a letter saying, we don't believe in you, that has, you know, that decides, and it doesn't decide.
No, it doesn't. In fact, this is a real misconception on the part of people. The Hakeem Jeffries of the world, the Chuck Schumers of the world, they have nothing to do with whether or not Biden will continue on. Nothing to do with it. They can take their Democratic caucus away. We're not going to support you. I've talked to other legislators, and we're not going to support you. So what? You know who I'm taking my case to? The American people. I have the delegates. I'm going to be the nominee, and I'm going to show you I'm going to beat Trump. That's where Joe Biden is. So I get these are high-profile Democratic Party figures, but they have no power. Kim is right. They have no leverage, really, apart from their media leverage. And as I say, media feeding frenzy, I think it's its own doom loop. It's like, I get it. I got it. But wow. If you put these two candidates up against each other, and they are, I just don't see how you, I'll say it over and over, I vote for Joe Biden on a hospital gurney.
Yes.
Before I vote for Donald Trump, whose intention is to dismantle this country, take away your choices in so many ways. They've already taken women's reproductive choices away, and there's way more than that. Take away all the guardrails on regulation and protections associated with consumer information. Take away all the guardrails, all the regulations / protections on water, air, soil, and toxins.
Are you voting for the person, or are you voting for the party? Right? Are you voting for the administration in place and the ideas and the platform? Or are you voting specifically for the person? It was the guy in charge of the William Morris Endeavor.
Oh, right. That's Ari Emanuel or something like that?
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Okay. So Ari Emanuel had something like, if it was my grandfather, I'd take his car keys away, and yet
Right.
somehow he's going to, and they kind of extended that metaphor, right? And now we're going to hand the keys to the car, and Kim sort of was making the point, isn't that right? I mean, that this person who doesn't seem completely connected all the time is going to get the car keys. And I was making the point, no, it's not right. And that's a crappy parallel, the driving the car. First of all, Biden's not driving the car, okay? Meaning, literally, he's not. He's not applying to be an Uber driver, okay? He's applying to run the country with a coalition of people that he's already shown can actually do a pretty goddamn good job. And they did it for 3.5 years. I think he is wildly diminished. I mean, diminished from where he was. I think this diminishment that he deals with is picking up steam. But I also think he just knocked down 3 massively busy, intense days, and he seemed to do with vigor and vibrancy. So I don't think you can put a fork in him yet. I really don't think this is Weekend at Bernie's. But the point that somehow this doddering old man, you'll wake him up at 2:30 in the morning while the missiles are launched, that is such a total BS narrative. And it's just used to get to whatever conclusion generally the right has already reached. So do not accept that idea somehow that, Joe Biden is, so diminished that he couldn't, he couldn't weigh in on any number of things going on. Yeah. I mean, look at all the things that they're dealing with in this administration over the last 3.5 years. But there's nothing in what Biden's public statements, or even, it would seem, private meetings reflect to suggest he's going to step back right now. Now, maybe it takes time for this erosion of support to actually meet what he sees as a reality. This is from the actual sit-down with George Stephanopoulos. It was after we got off the air, of course, on Friday. So here's a little bit of it. Go ahead.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It's a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they're trying to figure out what's wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
And did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were your experiences?
By the way,
as you were
I'd
going
stop there
through
for a
the debate?
second. I thought that was the first. Look, his halting manner or the fact that he doesn't speak. I think he speaks like Biden speaks. Has he slowed a little bit? Yeah, yeah. But I'm not jumping all over the way he's speaking right now in this interview. But I will jump all over this. Did you watch any of the debate? Did you go back and watch any of it? Simple yes or no question. Did you or didn't you? And he didn't answer in a simple yes or no way. First of all,
I did.
the only acceptable answer is yes, I did. Yes, I did, and I see why people might be concerned. But the reality is you were seeing someone who was dealing with a schedule that had just crescendoed on me, or it was a wave that crashed over me. Play the answer to the question again, Tony, and then I won't interrupt again.
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate.
Yeah. So he's, I think, less than clear might be I was going to say cogent. I think he's cogent-ish, but I think his interpretation is, open to further interpretation. And he's basically saying, I didn't prep for. This is, again, and you got to do this with Donald Trump too, just to be fair, because Donald Trump says a lot of crap, and you go, well, I think what he means is, with Biden, he's essentially saying, I prepared a lot of specifics, and this guy came at me with a fire hose of lies. That's essentially what he's saying. And I wish he'd said it that way. But, he is what he is. And what was the other? I had so then there's this morning. So that was Friday. And then over the weekend, you get more Democrats privately saying, we're not sure. We think the Kamala Harris scenario makes the most sense. And you have, as I've suggested, this waterfall of op-ed. It was incredible. If I was being paid by the op-ed I read about Biden and how you need to step out, I'd never have to work again. There were so many of them, both in Substack and New York Times, Washington Post, Chronicle, whatever it might be, the Merc. Let's look. You had the right thing. Let's look at this morning on Morning Joe, I guess is the show.
How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing. That's caused Democrats concern who believe that losing is not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option, and I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance at debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. Look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I don't want to get into it. He's just a liar. And he hasn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days or down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friends. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on in the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that. And I'm confident that's where the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way, 97% of all the people who contribute to us people make it under 200, contribute under $200. I think we have the largest contingent ever in history. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And so I want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think and what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. You don't see any, you see the major economists out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around and keep America first. And
this is,
way,
you can stop there, Tony. This is actually really good, what he's doing right now, but it's a shame that he just didn't do it on stage. In fact, all leading economists, and there's a pretty long list of them, suggest that Trump policies, the mass deportation, the Chinese tariffs, just for starters, will have an insanely inflationary effect. So the economy will revisit inflation in an even bigger way. Hey, he sounded good, sounded defiant, sounded like he was trying to get to the issues. And
sounded like a fighter, right?
You know, yeah. And the thing that he was doing is what I was mentioning to Gary Dietrich, which he's kind of playing the media and big politics, that is to say big donors. He's trying to play against them now. I know they want me to do this. I know they're writing these op-ed pieces. I know they're saying I should drop out. But you, the American people, I've been your advocate. We've done amazing things for 3.5 years, and we're going to keep doing them. That's what he's saying. And, you know, let's see. Biden was trying too hard to be honest about watching himself on the debate, says PT. His answer was he did not watch, but he feared someone may have played a snippet in his presence, though he wasn't watching. Oh, that could be. You're saying if there's then video of him watching the debate, it makes him look bad after the fact. God, imagine, but maybe. I mean, it's not completely unreasonable. So that's the Joe Biden that was on this morning, again, following a weekend of campaigning. Did I send you a third video, Tony? What was that? Oh, yeah, this relates to the NATO summit, I think. We'll play a little bit of this and we'll see. Go ahead.
Mark the 75th anniversary of the collective defense treaty known as NATO, at a time when the president is seeking to unite both the alliance and his party here at home. The president touting his record with NATO in an exclusive interview with MSNBC this morning.
The rest of the world is looking, our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this? I expanded NATO. I solidified NATO.
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Gregory Meeks from New York. He is the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. I thank you so much for your time. What's your reaction to what we heard from the president this morning?
I think the president told the truth. History is going to reflect this president is doing a tremendous job. NATO now is stronger than ever as a result of the efforts of this president. You now have, as opposed to NATO being weak, which Putin had counted on, they're more united than they've ever been before. And we have 2 new members in Finland and Sweden. So the president has been a unifier. And as we look at the 75th anniversary of NATO, NATO is more important now than ever, unlike the viewpoints of the challenger to the president, who basically, when he was president, said NATO may have outworn its usefulness, and who has also said Russia can do whatever they want to some of our NATO allies. No, Russia is trying to wait out till November, hoping that that the other guy can get elected, and that Biden continuing to unite the United States, our EU, our NATO allies, as well as, because what I think is unprecedented, again, led by this president, we have our Indo-Pacific partners also working with NATO and talking about some of the other challenges we have around the world. So it's not the United States alone or America alone, or America only. It's us with our democratic allies.
There you go. I like that. I think it does frame how important the NATO alliance is. It also frames how delicate international politics is. It doesn't do well with a reckless chief executive.
No.
So that's why I think Blinken and others in the State Department, as you know, the State Department was really cored out under Donald Trump, and they don't want the State Department to have many people on board. They're really about getting rid of the U.S. State Department. They want to get rid of the administrative state, but when you run into problems abroad, Ukraine, Russia, Gaza, etc., you need people who are in the world of diplomacy. That's how stuff gets done. So this idea that you can, strap on your nukes and talk tough, which is what Trump's game is, that doesn't work effectively in all of these different theaters. And the idea somehow that you'll roll over and let despotic leaders like Kim rub your belly and get a photo op with you, that doesn't work either. Not to mention, I'm giving Trump credit for actually trying to do something in the world of diplomacy, when I think what is actually going on with Donald Trump is he's trying to secure additional construction projects for Trump projects worldwide. That's what he cares about with the Russians. I mean, it's likely in that conversation in which he got rid of all White House and government people during the Putin conversation, only the translator remained. It's likely some of those conversations had to do with commercial endeavors that Trump wanted. Now, you can say, oh, Mark, you're jumping to go, well, you tell me. Why do you get rid of everybody else? Why would you possibly get rid of all of these people who are there to protect you? This is from Sam, says Biden will lose. Of course, lose is L-O-S-E, and I'll give you a pro tip, Sam.
Loose.
It is easy to misspell it. Lose is when you lose the second O, you see. There you go. That's a good way to remember it. Mark, how come they can elect and support Reagan? When first elected, he already had senility, and no one said a peep about it. By the time he was in the second term, he had full-blown dementia again. That, thank you, Karen, is a really good point. And I think it speaks to the way the media environment has changed. Reagan was a very carefully managed person in terms of appearances. And so I think, yeah, you're right. No one said anything is exactly right,
We didn't
Karen.
know. We had no idea. Until, afterward. And then there was all this talk about, Nancy Reagan was trying to protect him. And, in the waning days of his office, he didn't really have it together. The difference now is we saw him at the debate. And so now we think we know.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, it was just, the worst. Joe says, Luis, big shout out to everybody who sent us super stickers and super chats. Joe is like your 80-year-old grandfather who can no longer safely operate a car, but half the family's in denial and insists keeping him on the road. Maybe I don't really like these, 80-year-old grandfather who can no longer safely operate a car analogies, as I was kind of going through in the first, but what you're talking about is the denial. I get it. The denial part, it's not just denial. They can see what's happening, but they're talking about the viability at this stage of changing horses in midstream. So that's what they're evaluating. So I'm leaving the Biden defiance out, which is a big thing, but I'm leaving it out for now. So when you talk about grandfather and the keys, I get what you're talking in terms of the the pushback, like, let grandpa drive. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. But I feel it breaks down because the actual job of grandpa isn't to drive, as I was telling you in the first hour. It's to put together a coalition of good administrators and government employees who are honest and who have a strategy for the future. And I think Biden does that well. I don't know if it's Biden or somebody else, and there's a puppeteer there. I don't know. But I know that Trump doesn't do it well. So there you have it. Go ahead, Kim.
There's the difference between, President Biden and Democrats looking at his performance in the debate and going, right? And then we've seen video of Trump talking about sharks and electricity and weird boats and washing machines and his mind going off on these weird tangents, which would indicate to me there's some type of maybe acuity mental issue as well. But the difference is, in this case, the Republicans talk about circle the wagons. They'd lift him up on a pedestal. It's like they ignore that altogether, but we don't.
Right. It's just clearly the Democrats are barely a coalition party to begin with all of the different parts of the party. It's the big tent, you know.
Yeah.
So it's an effort just to keep the party together in the best of times.
Right.
When you enter something like this, you enter a period during which now everybody's got an opinion and we ought to have an open convention. And it's like, it feels as though, wow, this could be a huge mess. This is from some guy, the economy's in ruins. What is he talking about? Completely out of touch with the reality. No, Jay, sorry, you're completely out of touch. The economy's not in ruins. It's actually doing well. Here it is. Thank you, Will. Record high stock market, lowest unemployment in 50 years, and lowest inflation in the world. So
We just had an increase.
Yeah, right.
We just had a jobs report showing that we added more jobs than we thought we would.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, sorry, Jay. I mean, I know that's the talking point, maybe. Things are so bad. Oh, my God, the economy. But that's just not. Now, you could say it feels as though I'm not benefiting to that from that yet. But you can not say that the economy is in shambles, and you just can't say it. You can say it, but it's now you join the, pull the facts out of my ass club, which is really beginning to be more prominent in this country. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.